there's a couple of organizations that are celebrating their 100th anniversary this year. One happens to be WOWO Radio, the original Westinghouse, started back in 1925, above a hardware store, I believe. Well, they're celebrating their 100th anniversary. But another one is called the Grand Old Opry, and that was based in Nashville, Tennessee, from a radio station, WSM. Two radio stations started around the same time, both 50,000 watts. And on this radio station, they featured a daily or a weekly event. It was called the WSM Barn Dance. As a guy by the name of George Hayes started the whole thing up back in November 25th of 1925. So here he was, having a thing on the radio, because back in those old days, well, that's what you had. You didn't have TV, you had radio, people listened to radio. So that started back in 1925. Now, ultimately, they moved from a bunch of different locations to their current location, the Ryman Auditorium. Now, what they did was, in the original location, they actually cut out a 6-foot circle out of the wooden floor and placed that in the new auditorium. And that's kind of like the crown place. That's the throne, if you will. And the Grand Old Opry is kind of unique. They just had their anniversary show you saw on television, if you watched that. Saw the stars on there. And one of the big ones you saw was Carrie Underwood. Now, she went into the Grand Ole Opry. She was brought in back in 2008, I believe it was. So you get introduced to the Grand Ole Opry. Well, she sang a song to Randy Travis, one of Randy Travis's great songs. Randy Travis, who suffered a almost deadly stroke a number of years ago. And she was singing one of his classic songs, Forever and Ever. And the cool thing was, she sang the last of the song. There's one last line in there, one last word. And she went over to Randy Travis, even though he's in a wheelchair and has trouble speaking, sang the last word. It was pretty cool. Now, the Grand Ole Opry is not like the Hall of Fame. It is like a sorority or a fraternity. And these are people that appear on the Grand Ole Opry stage and a number of times. Now, if you're there enough and you get involved with everybody enough, like I said, it's like a fraternity or a sorority. People aren't voted in. This is like the group voting on who they want into their pack. All right? Some of the people who are not in the Grand Ole Opry, surprisingly enough, you might be surprised to know who's not in there. Well, the list includes Miranda Lambert, Hank Williams Jr. Frankly, he doesn't want to be in there because his music is a little more rock than country per se. George Strait. Now, George Strait's king of country, but he just doesn't want to make that many appearances. He's pretty much retired. This is showing up to Nashville, being on the stage, singing, doing your stuff. He's not really interested in doing that anymore. And you got Chris Stapleton, relatively new. He's not in yet. Tim McGraw, another country star, not in the Grand Ole Opry. Faith Hill, not in. Brooks and Dunn. I mean, I like Brooks and Dunn, but they're kind of more of a rock style, you know? Not fitting with the style of the Grand Ole Opry. They're more classic country kind of style. Alabama didn't make it either, once again. Alabama style being what it is. Toby Keith, late Toby Keith. Well, he's not in. May he get in? I don't know, but once again, he's not going to be making appearances there. But Toby Keith is not in. Shania Twain, another singer who's not in. Once again, her style of music maybe not fitting for the Grand Ole Opry, and maybe she doesn't appear there very often. And finally, another classic lady singer, Tanya Tucker. Those are people who are not in the Grand Ole Opry because, like I said, it's a sorority, fraternity. They invite you in. If you get invited in, well, you're invited in. But now they're celebrating 100 years, just like WOWO is. But you know what? In their own way, they're both stars, and they both deserve the honor because they are some of the best, the brightest, and the coolest. When it comes to broadcasting, you can't beat either of them. Just saying.